Welcome to the Michael Myers Minute, where we delve into the 1978 horror classic Halloween 1 minute at a time. I'll be your host, Robert Black, and this is just a little bit of a pilot episode to get things going, let you know what's up. There are a bunch of podcasts, if you don't know, Movies by Minute, where we watch movies 1 minute at a time, and, pick them apart. Analyze the visuals, analyze the style, analyze the acting, tell you behind the scenes details, all that nice stuff. As for me, I don't think I get to this. I've recorded a bunch of the minutes already. There's not a lot of biographical information yet. I know I get into a lot of details about myself. What is that? I want to say minute 17, 18, when we're talking about fate when Laurie's in the classroom, getting a little ahead of myself here. But I don't offer too much detail. What do you need to know about me? Why should you listen to me talk about Halloween 3 days a week, for a while? Act like I don't know. Like I'm not about, have a prepared brag in my head. Let's go this way. What do you need to know about me that makes me obsessive enough to do this sort of thing? A few years ago, I sat down and watched the movie Groundhog Day and wrote a blog about it. And I watched it every day for a year and wrote a blog. Those blogs averaged somewhere over 1,000 words. I think the average was 1,200 and something. I did the math because I also wrote my master's thesis about blogging and the invention of self on the internet. I continued that blog after that first year by watching other movies. I had themed months where I'd watch, one of them was romantic comedies. I watched 4 of them, each one for a week. I did a month where I watched slasher films. It was a different one each day in chronological release order. And I have been watching movies since, my earliest memories are movies. I'm 42, and I saw Halloween, for example, before I was 5. I keep track on IMDb of movies I've seen. I still find movies occasionally that should have been on that list by now, and I just never added them. But that list is around 5,000 movies. I think, to be exact, it's about 4,800. It's still off by 200, and that can take a while to get to 200 movies. That's a couple years worth for me. I average more than one movie a week in the theater, and whenever possible, I watch a movie a day, even though right now my blog is on hiatus to do this podcast thing. As I understand it, this Movies by Minute format started with the Star Wars Minute. I forget the guys' names offhand. I should have written that down so I could acknowledge them. But the Star Wars Minute started this, but I got into it through the Groundhog Minute. They contacted me because of my blog, Groundhog Day Project, because I am arguably an expert on the movie Groundhog Day. And in doing this podcast, I think I will be an expert on Halloween, even more than I already am. I could recite dialogue already when I get into this. I watch this movie at least once a year, and growing up, it was probably several times a year. Yeah, we'd have family friends over, we'd watch Halloween. We'd be bored, we'd watch Halloween. There were other movies on that list. Actually, one of the last things I did in my blog for the past year, which was year 4. The hammering. If you stick with this, you'll hear the hammering again in minute 11, which is the last one I recorded yesterday. Apartment next door is being refurbished. I could edit around, but I don't feel like it. Anyway, maybe I'll just get this done before he does too much of it. What you need to know: I am approaching this podcast a lot like I did my blog. It's occasionally very dense. It uses outside sources. I will be having some guests eventually. But as I said, 11 episodes recorded already. The first 2 involve conversation with my sisters, as you will see. That was recorded separately. Then 3 through 11, no guests, just me talking about the movie, citing outside sources, talking about behind-the-scenes information, useful sources that I will keep coming back to just in case I don't reference them exactly in the future. Obviously, there's the script for Halloween. I have a copy of the shooting script by John Carpenter and Deborah Hill, to which I'm adding all my notes. I have a copy, not a physical copy because they're hard to find, for a reasonable price, a copy of the Halloween novelization by Curtis Richards, and I keep coming back to that because it adds fascinating details. I don't know what he's hitting. Anyway, I gotta mute and come back, but I don't feel like it. I'm just gonna end this. I would keep coming back to the novelization because it adds interesting details that, on the one hand, a lot of the time the movie doesn't need, but it does make for interesting stuff. I will often cite Murray Leader, sometimes without referencing what the book is from. Murray Leader wrote a book simply called Halloween. It's a series of small books about horror films called the Devil's Advocate series. Then Richard Knoll. This book, I still don't have an actual copy of it, but I have pieces I've grabbed off of Google Books, and I've read a whole couple chapters of it. It's called Blood Money, A History of the First Teen Slasher Film Cycle, which is... As you can see, I don't have a soundproof area for recording just yet. Noel's book is interesting because it's basically about business decisions that led to certain slasher films getting made. Like, not just that Friday the 13th was trying to rip off Halloween and make some money, but they maybe picked a summer camp as a setting because of other movies involving summer camps around at the time. And it's this whole thing about the industry at the time and how it led to certain movies happening at the times they did. Just fascinating. And then finally, Carol J. Clover's book, Men, Women, and Chainsaws, Gender in the Modern Horror Film. I'll mostly get to that toward the end when we're talking about like the concept of the final girl, stuff like that, but she'll come up now and then. It's a fascinating book, and the essay she wrote that was expanded into the first chapter of it, what's called Her Body Himself, is wonderful essay about the concept of the final girl and the slasher killer and psychosexual fury and all this other fascinating, like, good terms that I'll repeat often, I'm sure, because despite, even without specific reference to Clover, it's become part of my terminology for this kind of thing. I love movies like this. I love slasher films. I love horror films generally, and I love film all around. I also love when there isn't hammering while I'm trying to record. But I had to get this episode done today because episode 1 is supposed to be up next week, and I wanted to get this out first. Talk a little bit about myself. I majored in history to be a history teacher in college. One of my classes was about pop culture, and we dealt with history of popular culture for the last century, which was fun. In grad school, I majored in communication studies, took some specific film classes, but I didn't major in TV film, though people always asked why I didn't when they found out I was blogging every day about movies. One teacher, he's like, "You write 1,000 words a day about movies? Why aren't you a film critic?" I'm like, I don't know, it never came up. I had a YouTube channel for a while where I did movie reviews. They're still there if you look them up, including one of them. The channel is called After the Film, and one of the videos is a top 5 slasher films, which is like an hour long of me talking about 5 slasher films and American culture and violence, stuff that will come up, I'm sure, in this podcast. Anyway, enough about that, enough of the hammering. If you want to stalk us, you can stalk us on Twitter at Myers Minute. Join the Facebook group, 45 Lambkin Lane. Or if you just want some more of my thoughts about movies, head on over to GroundhogDayProject.com. There are 1,365 blog entries about movies. Don't forget to subscribe if you like what you're going to hear or what you heard today, and leave us a nice review. I promise there is not that much hammering. Although in minute 11 there is some. Until next time.
See you later. Bye. Bye.